Okay, so we're going to talk about the 6 perfections, familiar to people who have been studying, but totally new to people who are new. So these are things that bodhisattvas practice to reduce suffering and increase virtue in the world. Okay, they're called the 6 perfections. Can anyone who studied them before give me just one?
Giving.
Yes, giving, generosity. That's the first one. Can someone give me just one more? Then I'll. What did you say?
Patience.
Yes, patience, not getting angry.
What's the second one? Did anyone know the order? Ethical way of life, morality, perfection of morality.
Yeah.
Third one was patience.
Yeah, patience.
Okay.
Fourth one,
Effort.
joyful effort. Yes, joyful effort. Fifth one,
Meditative.
yes, concentration. And then the 6th one, wisdom. Okay, so what makes these perfections? So Master Kamala Shila in the stages of meditation, he says, it's only a perfection when the act is imbued with wisdom. Okay? Meaning it's only a perfection when you're understanding the emptiness of the, more new terminology, the 3 spheres. Okay, so we're going to talk about it. In the case of the perfection of giving, the emptiness of the 3 spheres are the emptiness of you, the giver, of the person that you're giving to, and the thing that you're giving to them. Okay? It means that when you're giving, you're understanding that the giver, the receiver, and the thing being given is empty of any self-existence. It lacks any self-nature, right? In other words, the world isn't out there with all of these qualities coming at you, right? It's the farming thing that we talked about earlier. Things are, they are ripening from past causes that have everything to do with you, okay? So you, the other person, the thing that you're giving, they're all like plants that are sprouted from seeds that you planted earlier, okay? For example, how do I have Dharma to speak to you right now? Okay? I studied and practiced Dharma with the intention of helping other people. Okay? I do not have the nature, self-nature of a Dharma teacher. I was not born into the world a Dharma teacher, right? 20 years ago, I never could have imagined this. 20 years from now, who knows what I will be? Whatever it is will depend on causes, okay? That's my lack of a self-nature, okay? And you guys are all the same in lacking any self-nature. This is why we can change, right? So doing actions with this understanding, this wisdom of the emptiness, the lack of any set true nature, right? It works to destroy the illusion of duality, of a set separation between self and others, okay? But that wisdom is really, really hard to understand because nothing looks that way. It goes against everything that we've thought our entire lives, okay? So if it's hard to understand, it's supposed to be. It's supposed to take years and years of work to start to get glimpses of this wisdom, okay? But maybe you get glimpses now, but then it kind of fades away quickly and you're back into seeing things as really dualistic, right? So since this wisdom is so hard to get, what's a method? What are actions that we can do to help us get to this wisdom, right? You care for everyone as if they're a part of you, okay? This is a key in the Bodhisattva practice, right? Because by wrapping your arms around everyone and saying, you're a part of me, and acting that way, that starts to chip away at our grasping to this small me. I'm here and you're over there, right? Remember the quote that we had from Dharmakirti in the last class. Because you believe in a self, you believe there's an other. On behalf of self and other, there's attachment and aversion. All of the faults come about in association with these, right? So, putting your arms around the world and saying, you're a part of me, and I'm going to treat you like you're a part of me, it breaks down that division, okay? So, since the first of the 6 perfections, it's the perfection of giving, we wanted to go more into that. So bodhisattvas, they give in 3 main ways in the perfection of giving. They give dharma, right? They give freedom from fear, which is really beautiful, and James is going to talk about that. And they give material things, okay? So giving dharma and supporting dharma is really precious because dharma can change the course of someone's life. And it tends to go on, it tends to stay in your mind stream and go on with you, right? As opposed to something that's just like a material thing that's going to be used and it just goes away, right? So dharma is a really amazing thing to give. And the good thing is that giving dharma, it can be done by anybody. You don't have to give a formal dharma teaching. You can give dharma by your living example. You can give dharma in a conversation with a friend when they can't even tell that you're giving them dharma, right? You can give dharma by supporting a dharma center, by inviting a friend to a dharma teaching, right? All of these are ways of giving dharma. And in terms of teaching dharma, because some of you are teachers, it's really good to remember that the students aren't separate from your mind. So if you have put in a lot of effort to reduce your mental afflictions, you might see your students making fast gains, you know?
Nice.
Yeah.
So giving freedom from fear, that's something that bodhisattvas do when they're practicing the perfection of wisdom. Perfection of giving. And that's really interesting in the context of political strife. So Jay Tsongkhapa, we often mention Jay Tsongkhapa. He's the founder of the lineage of the Dalai Lamas.
That's him.
Jay Tsongkhapa and the Lamrim Chenmo, which is the great steps on the path. He took the challenge of trying to basically take all the Buddhist teachings and put it into, I guess it's like 1,500 pages. Mm-hmm. And we spent a lot of time with that text in 3-year retreat. Says, we're supposed to protect people from the abuses of kings and robbers, as well as fear of the elements, like water and fire. So it's quite proper for spiritual practitioners to oppose tyranny and corruption. It's quite proper for spiritual practitioners to oppose the causes of climate change, which results in more extreme weather. Why is it proper? Because tyranny and corruption and climate change hurts people. And we're opposing suffering and the causes of suffering. Even the perpetrators of these things are hurting themselves karmically. So whenever you see somebody hurting somebody else, you want to stop them, not just for the person they're hurting, but for them. And you know this from your own life. If you ever want to have a bad night of sleep, just disturb somebody's mind during the day. Those people that make other people fearful, their minds are ravaged by fear. You know it from your own experience. And karma is vicious. Remember those seeds? They increase. So, have compassion for people that are hurting other people, because they're not going to be hurt in a 1-to-1 ratio. It's going to magnify. You've probably seen the Dalai Lama speak at some point and see how much love he has for his homeland and how much love he has for the Chinese people. And if you know the story of the fall of Tibet, where 80,000 monks were slaughtered, where 8,000 monasteries and these sacred books were burned to the ground, where this kingdom that was organized just around getting enlightened for over 1,500 years was destroyed. And he doesn't have an ounce of hate for the people involved in that crime. And there's so many reasons for that, and there's so many levels, but one of the things he says is it's far worse for the people who did that. The karma of that is far worse for them. I can have so much compassion. So I find that very helpful in this world. So when a bodhisattva sees people being abused, afflicted by fear, or causing suffering, a bodhisattva practicing the perfection of giving will act to alleviate it in some way. For example, depending on your motivation, voting can be a bodhisattva act. You can think with as much equanimity about others. What would reduce fear for others? What would reduce fear in the world? And vote that way. Or you can say, well, what would be best for me? And vote that way. You can be a bodhisattva or you can be an anti-bodhisattva. Okay. And every moment of your life is like that. Do I want to put others first? Or do I want to put myself first? And now you've been clued in. Now you know the secret. Every time you put others first, it's going to go smoothly. There will be happiness. They will be very happy. You will be happy. The karmic results will be nice. And every time you put yourself first, there will be friction. There will be conflict. And everything in your life is like that. So hey, you get to take the test as many times as you want.
So the third type of giving is giving material things. This is food, it's money, it's shelter, right? And it doesn't have to be like you give to a stranger or something. I mean, we have chances to be giving these things with our children, with the people that we live with the people that we work with our friends, with the server at the restaurant, right? We have chances all the time. And the idea is you give at your capacity and you don't give beyond your capacity, but you work to increase your capacity. Okay, you should never give so much that you then regret it. That's kind of the rule to know. Don't ever give so much that you would regret it. That's really bad, right? But push your capacity. Even when it's hard, right? Because the perfection of giving, it is supposed to help us destroy our epic selfishness, right? So it should be uncomfortable sometimes when you're like, oh, I don't know. And then you can feel that release when you let it go, right? It shouldn't always just be so easy. You should feel that, what's going to happen to me? You know what? Forget it. Just let it go. And then you can feel that opening, right? But we want to warn you that even with your efforts to be virtuous with giving, the selfish mind can be wily and creep in, okay? Like you might think, you know what, I'm donating this money that's like going to be really good business for me because I'm going to get an awesome karmic result. And it's true. I mean, the Buddha taught, like the generosity creates, the karmic result of generosity is that you experience abundance, a feeling of abundance, right? You perceive abundance. And that makes sense because think about like that mental seed that you're planting when you let something go, right? Like that, there's enough for everyone, right? And then the result of that is there's enough for everyone. I don't have to worry, there's enough for me, right? But thinking about the result you're gonna get, like, oh, I'm gonna, get a nice, maybe I'll get a raise or something or whatever. You think of some good result that you'll get. That's like the selfish mind coming in and kind of screwing it up a little bit, okay? So Jason Kappa, he warns about this trap in the Lamrim Chenmo. He says, if you give while merely considering the karmic result of generosity, resources and the like, you will obtain a large amount of resources, but you will not attain liberation. Aryadeva warns about the same thing in his 400 verses, thinking, from making gifts to this person, I will get a great reward. Such getting and giving are looked down on as being like wanting profit in business. Okay? So, Bodhisattva practice, it does result in a better and better experience of the world, Resources, a loving partner, people respecting you, like, because you respect other people, like all these good things that you're doing, yes, it is going to come back to you, right? And so because of that, there have been some debates in Buddhist history that, there's too much danger. You're going to, in the Bodhisattva path, you're going to get attached to the results, and that's going to veer you off course, right? So you just do the monastic thing of non-attachment and don't make all this, blooming goodness and stuff. Just be non-attached, right? But it's not true. When you do bodhisattva deeds with the motivation, show me wisdom. I want to end suffering for myself and everyone, right? And that's why I'm doing this. If you do it with that motivation, then that will lead you to enlightenment, okay? So we have to watch our motivation.
So the key is, by caring for others as you're planting seeds to get greater wisdom for how that's true. And this is the really exciting thing about Bodhisattva practice. It's very much a choose your own adventure type story. That's what spiritual practice is. Depending on your wish, a path will manifest for you. Seriously. And the varieties of paths that will manifest depend on what your wish is. That's how cause and effect works. So the most amazing thing about the path to enlightenment is you're the one that builds it. I can remember when that became clear in retreat, and it was shocking that the books, the teachings were not separate from my mind, and realizing how that was true, and seeing how my wish to take suffering away from other people created this Bodhisattva path. And seeing why Buddhism is so broad and so deep and so many different levels. It's because people have different wishes. So the very best thing you can do is understand this causal relationship between what your wish is, what deeds are you really doing, how do you view that relationship, and understand that then you're setting yourself up for this incredible ripening where you'll hear highest wisdom teachings finally, and they will make sense. How many versions of this talk is there tonight? Is everyone hearing this talk the same way? You can be certain there are as many versions of this talk as there are minds in this room. Everybody's hearing it a different way. You see? It's not self-existent, the words that we're saying. How they hit you, how they resonate with you, that comes from your mind. That's the emptiness of these teachings. That's you building your path to enlightenment. And if you don't have the wish, then the path never appears to you. Third rule of karma: no seed, no result.
That's pretty cool. That's why I always feel so good coming away from teaching these classes. I just feel like something awesome happened. I mean, being here with you guys. So we're going to give you some like Dharma advice for how to keep the perfection of giving pure to increase the virtue, right? First, recognize that the practice of the perfection of giving is a cause for something really big. It's a cause for an end to our self-cherishing, right? And our self-cherishing causes all of our problems, right? So that's a big thing. It's also a cause for the creation of a profound equanimity, like enlightened beings have, like Jesus has, right? So when you give, think, you're a part of me, okay? And is that true? You know, what makes that true? What is me or self, right? Is me in my spleen? Is me in my elbow, right? Is me in my children who have my DNA? If so, are there two me's, you know? Me is dependent on a thought and label, okay? Where else would you find me, right? And then you can go on Ancestry.com and find out that you were descended from a king, and then your sense of me goes all the way back to that king, right? It's thought and label. And then also, self and other always come together. There's no such thing as self without other, and no such thing as other without self. It's like inside and outside. They are dependent. They always come together. You can't have one without the other. You are incomplete without others. Your self is incomplete without others. They always come together. Okay, so you are part of me. Give with you are part of me. Okay, and it's true. It's true. Okay. Then if you have this thought and you do this practice, you will not fall into the trap of, well, if I give to them, what's going to be left for me? Okay? As soon as thoughts like that start coming in, you're back to this duality of self and other, which is not true. That's ignorance. That's illusion. That is not true. Okay? So watch when you're like that, right? It's our natural thing. Of course it will come. Combat it with this kind of practice. Giving. You're a part of me, right?
And so those are bold statements, okay? that everything you see in the world is part of you. So let's just prove that, okay? Here's a quick thought experiment how you can prove it. Just close your eyes. Think of a person in your life. Someone you're close to. Does everyone see that person the same way? Does everyone have the same story about that person? Can you even establish a story about that person independent of your own mind? See how the only reality that you can see about that person depends on your thought and label. Again, ask yourself, can that story about that person exist independent of your thought and label? And how would you ever know? Okay. So this would be a meditation that you would work on. And you see, you pick a person in your life. Does everyone have the same story about them? Not even close. Already you see your person. To somebody else, they may feel neutral. To somebody else, that person doesn't even exist. To somebody else, they may feel hostile. Maybe even you go through that whole range of emotions. But you can only see your person, which proves that the person isn't coming at you, because if they were coming at you, then everyone would see them the same way. But you're seeing your person coming from you. There's different levels to how they prove this in Buddhism, but a good place to get to is, okay, there's person, but I'm putting my story about them on them. And we're in a time of political strife. Some people think we have the best president we have ever had right now. Other people have an opposite view. That's proof that the story about that president is not coming from that president. That president doesn't have qualities of his own. It's a little spooky when you realize that's part of my mind. Okay, so that's a way into this, that what you're dealing with is not separate from you. Anyone have any questions about that? Was that clear enough? Okay, good. Okay. So a second piece of advice for how to feel comfortable pursuing the perfection of giving is to recognize you can't take your wealth and possessions with you. None of us knows how long we have to live. And in the end, all your stuff is going to go to somebody else anyway. You know, and again, I'm feeling this one very recently. My father passed away last weekend, and, you know, spent much of the week rounding up everything that could be given to homeless shelters, his clothes, things that he wouldn't need anymore, things that somebody else could use this. I mean, we're in a little tiny one-bedroom apartment. We don't need anything. We keep our life very simple. So you see these things and it's like, oh, somebody could use that. Somebody could use that. So just go ahead and use whatever you have to create virtue now. While you can record those mental images in your mind. And my father, at the end of his life, didn't have a lot of things. Like, he kept going through the process of paring down. He did a nice job in that way. Aryasura, in the 4th century, wrote in the Compendium of Perfections, "By giving you achieve happiness in future lives. Not giving brings suffering even in this life. Human wealth is like a shooting star. What is not given will cease to exist. Wealth not given is transitory and it will be gone. By giving, it will always remain a treasury. Wealth of no value comes to have value when you strive to help living beings. The wise praise giving wealth away. Childish persons like to hoard it. No wealth is kept by holding on to it. From giving it away, excellence always arises. By giving things away, you no longer grasp to afflictions. Being miserly breeds afflictions on an ignoble path. Noble beings say generosity is the best path, while its opposite is a bad path. So it's important to realize that attachment and stinginess creates so much fear of loss. And again, mental afflictions are the enemy. The wealthy people on the planet are people that are satisfied with what they have. People that are afflicted, I don't have enough, I need more. That's not wealth. No matter what the bank account says, because there's not peace of mind there. And you will come to find there is nothing more valuable than peace of mind. Lord Buddha observed this in terms of people who are trapped by desire for their wealth. The Buddha warns us in the Sutra of the Few. He says, few are those people in the world who, when acquiring lavish wealth, Don't become intoxicated and heedless. Don't become greedy for sensual pleasures, and don't mistreat other beings. Many more are those who, when they acquire lavish wealth, become intoxicated and heedless, become greedy for sensual pleasures, and mistreat other beings. Impassioned with sensual possessions, greedy, dazed by sensual pleasures, they don't awaken to the fact that they've gone too far, like a deer in a trap laid out. Afterwards, it's bitter for them, evil for them, the result. So, something to help you is there is never fear from what you've given away. And what you hold on to, there's fear I'm going to lose it, right? So start small. Please start small. Please build this as a continuous habit. The habit of mind is more important than the size of the gift. But just watch. There's never fear from what you give away.
So giving does create a world that's generous to you. And the Buddha first taught the perfection of giving because he noticed that people were generally unhappy when they didn't have resources, right? Chandrakirti, he's a 7th century master, and he wrote in Entering the Middle Way, ordinary individuals craving happiness cannot live without comfort. Recognizing that comfort comes from generosity, it was this the Buddha spoke of first. So spoke of first is a reference to, it was the first perfection that he talked about, okay? But the real purpose of generosity, like you will get the ultimate comfort from generosity. And this is cool, I actually only learned this in scripture, we learned it 2 years ago. I hadn't heard it before. This is really awesome. I'll read it first. Chandrakirti says, furthermore, practicing generosity, they will swiftly meet with a superior, an Arya Bodhisattva, completely cutting the stream of samsara. Having such a cause, they proceed to the yield of peace. So the ultimate result of generosity is that you will meet a realized master who will teach you how to get out of the cycle of suffering, okay? That's pretty cool. I didn't know that correlation before. Generosity ultimately will result in you meeting a realized master who will teach you how to get out of the cycle. Okay, that's really cool. So don't be so concerned with your worldly results, like we've been talking about, right? Another reason to not be so concerned about the worldly results is that you have no control over, and you have no idea when the results are going to come from your generosity. Okay, you can't depend on them. You don't know when they're going to come, right? Generally, the more powerful an object you give to, they call it a karmic object, right? The more powerful the karmic object, the faster the result will come. So they say that karma done towards your mother and father, or towards a spiritual teacher who's trying to help you, that karma ripens faster than other karma because the karmic objects are so powerful. And also karma that you do with really, really strong intention and really strong emotion, that ripens faster too, right? So that kind of karma, it can ripen pretty fast. And a second reason to not be so attached to the karmic results of your generosity is that, and we talked about this a little bit last week, your karma, it doesn't have to necessarily ripen in your small me, like in your personal bank account, right? It ripens all your perceptions, your environment, the people in your world. Like the fact that you can go to the grocery store and you see rows upon rows of beautiful apples, all the different kinds, right? That is a vision of abundance, okay? So don't think that your karma only ripens on your small me, right? And so not attaching to results is a reason that bodhisattvas give away even the merit created by their acts of giving, right? They just give it all away, okay? So Chandrakirti, he says, in Entering the Middle Way, the results of such giving go to both self and other at the same time, okay? And Master Shantideva says, I will give away without a sense of loss my body and my resources, as well as all my virtue from the past, present, and future for the welfare of all living beings. And Jason Kappa says, if you stop the craving that conceives everything to be your personal property, and then repeatedly condition yourself to the attitude of giving it all away to others, you will be called a bodhisattva. And then the last one, Aryasara, he says in the Compendium of the Perfections, all these things are yours. I have no pride that they are mine. Someone who has this amazing thought repeatedly and emulates the qualities of the perfect Buddha is called a bodhisattva. So said the inconceivable Buddha, the Supreme Being.
It's really beautiful, and I hope there's this little moment in your heart that's like, that's too much. Okay? Like the self is like, we got to get out of here. Okay? What are we hearing? Okay? The self is like, that's crazy town. Let's go. Okay? I hope that voice is starting to happen for you. Okay? Because what you're finding out is this practice is going to destroy that small self. And the small self knows it. The small self is very, very nervous about what it's hearing, what wisdom it's being exposed to, because it's about to realize the ultimate thing's going to be exposed. There is no self. It is a thought and label created by habit. There is no true nature that you need to protect. And protecting this illusory self is the cause of suffering. And when you can let go of that self, there's no longer suffering. So, if you're having that whisper happening inside, that's like, this is too much, who can possibly do this? There's a feeling of inadequacy that starts whenever you get serious about tackling the mental afflictions, whenever you get serious about trying to undertake bodhisattva deeds. And what I want you to know, what we want you to know, is that it is built into the path. You're supposed to bump up against your inadequacy. You're supposed to bump up against this demonic self that has convinced you you're it. This illusion that's camping out in your mind stream. Okay? You're supposed to bump up against it. And when you get to your inadequacy, then you realize the way that I am now, I can't walk this path. It's too much. Who can possibly do this? And then you I wish I could be something else. I wish I could be an enlightened being who could actually not worry about the small self, who could actually care for all appearances as me. I'm not that now, but I wish I could be. And when you start that wish, then the how you can become an enlightened being gets revealed to you. It is a cause and effect relationship, and you build that path, and it starts with the wish. So the very kindest thing you can do for sincere spiritual practitioners is introduce them to the wish for enlightenment. Because those seeds will flower, and when they flower, you will get the secrets of how everything can be transformed. We want to teach highest wisdom very much. It's our favorite thing to talk about. We intend to talk about that in our next class. But we have to plant the seeds to be able to hear it, you see? So we'll close with a meditation that I really want you to work. If you're interested in hearing highest wisdom, you have to create the causes to hear it.